Good evening all. Today it's the 28th of September 2021. We are in the last session of the first day's Livenarch Congress. It's the 7th Livenarch Congress that is held this year, and it's on the other architectures. Today, the last and third session is on education. We are in the education session, and we'll have 5 speakers from various universities from Turkey, such as Tekirdağ Namık Kemal University, the Middle East Technical University, Karatay University, 9 Eylül University, and Istanbul Aydın University. As you all know, within the architectural education practice, studios take a major part, and we can say that architectural studios are the generators of novelty and as well as creativity. And what we can also say is that within architectural education, art as well as lots of fields of sciences and as well as fields of thought are open. In our session on education today, on our third and last session of today, we'll have topics as diverse as cinema, as well as studios that are losing their boundaries, as well as topics like distance education, the problems of distance education, as well as living laboratories, and for the last and not, of course, least, the horizon of de-schooling. So I'd like to present our speakers of today. First, Meltem ÖZÇAKI. She'll present. She's from Tekirdağ Namık Kemal University. She'll present a paper which has a topic of trials of different places and subjects in design. And our second presentation will be about architectural education beyond the borders of others, and presented by 3 speakers from the Middle East University, Özge, Selen, DURAN, Berna, TANVERDİ, and Fadime, YILMAZ. And our third paper is from Karatay University by Merve ATMACA. And our paper is on a critical approach to distance education from the perspective of the architecture studio instructors. And the next one is from 9 Eylül University by Hulya SELÇUK and Ferhat HACIALİBEYOÞLU, titled as Living Laboratories in Architecture Research and Education. And our last paper is by Hulya YAVAS, and her paper is on de-schooling the architectural education. So let's begin with Meltem ÖZÇAKI.
My name is Meltem ÖZÇAKI. I'm working at Tekirdağ Namık Kemal University, Department of Architecture. My presentation title is Trials of Different Places and Subjects in Design, the example of Inside Out movie. The pictures used in the presentation are the images taken from the Inside Out movie and belongs to the students' work. This study focuses on the relationship between architecture and cinema, and then conveys the study conducted by architecture students on the Inside Out movie. The study conveys that data obtained by taking a cinema film as the basis to determine space and subjects in the architecture design studio. Cinema is one of the fields that is connected with architecture. They are affected and benefit from each other. Both architecture and cinema are concerned with the human and space where the human is in and realizes his activities. Cinema, in a similar manner to architecture, creates a three-dimensional space perception through a two-dimensional surface. It can reflect different periodic situations such as past, present, and future. Films about the past enable cities, buildings, clothes, decors, and human life to be perceived in the fourth dimension and included in life, rather than just by reading or looking at pictures. Films that are about today create a visual archive of the present for the future. Proposals for the future offer a different life alternative than today, then enable the audience to generate ideas about what the future will be like. Negative future scenarios encourage the person not to make the mistakes made today in order to make the future better. Depending on their fiction, future scenarios in the films make suggestions of a utopian or dystopian life. Inside Out is an animation movie which presents a wide repertoire of space and in which emotions that resemble humans in terms of appearance and behaviors are in leading roles. It is mainly set in functional spaces that are in the human brain. The film involves strong spatial elements which trigger imagination in terms of architecture. The fact that the living spaces of the main characters are not shown in the film apart from their working times constitutes a subject to make a design on. First-year students of architectural design class made a study in which they designed spaces for these emotions judging from their status in the film. Inside Out is an animation movie which was released in 2015. The focus point of the film is that people are directed by emotions in the headquarters who determine their manners and behaviors in certain situations. These emotions observe life through that person's life and live with him. The film is based on the idea that the changes in the people's moods occur based on these main emotions. The physical appearance of the emotions in the film resemble humans. They have heads, bodies, arms, and legs, and they dress like humans, but they do not look like each other based on their body types and their colors suitable to their characteristics. In the study conducted with students, they were required to come up with ideas on what kind of place the emotions in a person's head have when they are not working. The study was a short project before the main study of the term took place. It was conducted with 11 first-year students of Architecture Department in Tekirdağ Namık Kemal University within the context of Architectural Design 2 class of spring term in 2016-2017 academic year. The number of emotions was increased as the number of students exceeded the number of emotions, and only one student was required to work on a specific emotion. Apart from joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear, they also made designs for other emotions. The designs were made in accordance with the characters studied. They choose their own choice of construction material and model material because the designed place would be inside a person's brain. The designs were made according to an interior space guarded by outer weather conditions. There are factors that differentiate the practice on inside-out movie from general research subjects, in other words, making it other. Students realized their ideas by making models. They supported their ideas through architectural diagrams they handled in their end product as models and presentation board. There are examples of them. Working on a cinema film in the architectural design studio enables students to see the infinitude of the design process and the interdisciplinary structure of architecture. They have the opportunity to work with a variety of environments, lives, and people. Working on the Inside Out movie, the students experienced the architectural discipline through the cinema discipline. It was highlighted that architecture is not only about constructing buildings but also designing the space. They make designs by understanding the characters in the film and empathizing with them. The study also reveals the fact that architecture is limitless and can be integrated to all parts of life. Thank you for listening.
And before starting the second one, I'd like to make a small remark on your questions, on your possible questions. Please keep your questions noted. And we'll have all the questions after seeing all of the presentations. So please keep them until we finish all the presentations.
Welcome to our presentation of the paper for transitive workshops as expansive integrative educational mediums for the 7th Livenarch Congress. We are delighted to be selected and have the chance to share our experiences. We are a team of 3 architects, me, Berna, TANVERDİ, Özge, Selen, DURAN, and Fadime YILMAZ. And 3 of us have experiences in both the practice of architecture as well as the education of architecture. And today we would like to share our experiences of ArchiPract workshop, which we have designed and have already applied a couple of times at various universities. Some of our experiences have been at Yaşar University in Izmir, Medipol University in Istanbul, and a couple of other workshop series in Bilkent University, Ankara. As to very briefly overview the potentials of ArchiPract workshops as experiential learning, we can claim that in the education of architecture, there exists some opposing dualities, such as theory versus practice, education versus application, student versus the educator. And these are believed to underrepresent the complex relations of architectural practice in education. So as to overcome such shortcomings of the current educational model, ArchiPract workshops are designed to operate as a transitive learning medium based on experiential learning theory, which claims to expand the experience of education into a recursive cycle of experiencing, reflecting, thinking, and acting. Thus, the main aim of the workshop initiative is to maximize the modes of learning by doing in order to diversify the possibilities for hands-on experiences. Before discussing the details of the workshops, we may overview the theoretical framework as the background. Some of the educational concepts and learning theories behind this study are theory learning, situational learning, experiential learning, and autonomous learning. And one of the most important common component of all these theories is the importance of the environment in which learning takes place. As opposed to textbook learning, this type of learning is dynamic, open to change, and has potentials of new definitions and inventions. In line with such concerns and objectives, the ArchiPract workshop series has been developed to operate as an experiential learning environment, as already has been declared by call, where the participants are expected to generate knowledge, to develop insight, and to reflect upon experiences. In order to gain this mindful experience on knowledge, the structure of the workshop is designed to challenge the relation between the participant and the given project. So within the methodology of our suggested ArchiPract workshops, we use reverse engineering as the main component. During the workshops, the participants are asked to act as professionals as to examine a fully developed project which is already completed. And they are not expected to produce knowledge, but rather they are expected to extract the knowledge of their assigned discipline and re-represent it. This deductive method is called reverse engineering, which considers the artifact as an embodiment of knowledge, both theoretical and practical. using dissection as an operative method to obtain knowledge from the artifact. So this chart basically represents the process of our workshop series, and it can be very briefly defined in 3 phases, which are the introduction phase, extraction phase, and recomposition phase. So within the introductory phase, very briefly, the project at hand is explained and introduced to the participants. And in the second phase, which is the extraction phase, all the participants start working in groups according to their assigned roles as the engineers, consultants, as the architect or the interior designer, and they start working in groups. And of course, the mentoring through the process again continues. And the third stage, which is the final stage, is the recomposition and re-representation of their findings. All groups represent their own clusters of data, superimposing their findings on a final presentation, together with their individual feedbacks on the process. And the final output at the end is the superimposition of all data of all groups extracted from the given project. And this is discussed by all the participants and the mentors. So as to conclude, architect workshops are believed to perform as a basis for each and every other to float through each other, thus repositioning architecture at a point to generate its own knowledge in a theoretical framework supported by its very practice. Thus, the ultimate goal can be asserted as a contribution to the education of architecture through the construction of an enriched perspective of real-life experiences, through active participation by role-playing and acting. So thank you for listening, and we hope to have other platforms to share our workshop series and continue our experiences.
Now we are having the third presentation, I think, video of the third presentation. By Merve and Betül ŞAHİN from Karadeniz University, a critical approach to distance education from the perspective of the architecture studios instructors.
Hello everyone. The study was prepared by me, Merve, and my friend Betül ŞAHİN. The title of the study is A Critical Approach to Distance Education from the Perspective of the Architectural Studio Instructor. The table of contents of the study are as follows: purpose and scope of the study, method of the study, findings and conclusion. The positive and negative situation experienced in the studio classes of the architecture departments during COVID-19 period were examined from the perspective of the studio instructors. The research aims to create a critical perspective on distance and hybrid education taught the experience of the study instructor. Within the scope of the study, the instructors were asked open-ended questions. These questions were prepared by taking into consideration the critique obtained from the definitions made by Aydınlı of the studio instructor do this in architectural education, phases of the distance education concept instructed by Moore and Kersley, and the change of these phases over the years by Gökmen, Duman, and Horson. After 6 open-ended questions were designed, questions were sent to 15 architectural studio instructors. At this point, the answers obtained taught, written, and audio records were collected in a common pool. In this context, the findings of the study are as follows. 15 studio instructors, 7 of whom state that they used the distance education model completely, and the rest of whom state that they used the distance and hybrid education model together. They use a lot of programs such as Percoless, Zoom, Adobe Connect, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Morgan, Miro, and Blackboard. In the evaluation of the positive and negative situation experience, the first thing that stands out is related of the students to open audio and video. The students' resistance from the perspective of the instructor was interpreted as the students were dealing with different tasks simultaneously and did not care enough about the seriousness of the lesson. Another negative situation was in terms of equipment. Adhering to a few specific line types by using only mouse was also not considered appropriate for the project dynamics. However, as a general assessment, while it's difficult for everyone to see the project critic at the same time in traditional education, it has been considered as a positive situation that many students could see the screen and listen to gap assessment at the same time in visual environments. The instructors were asked which places they used during distance education process, and they were asked to compare this place with the studio used in the traditional education. In this evaluation, it was observed that especially in the hybrid education model, the trainers continued to listen in the studios, and some of them continued education in their own private office. However, in institutes where there is no obligation to come to school, generally the instructors who continue to education from their own homes in their study rooms experience their options. The evaluation of the studio instructor about how online or hybrid education affects his motivation was another question. Most of the instructors state that the motivation decreases, especially over time. The instructors who try to get used to the new system at first, afterwards, even if they got used to the system, said that their motivation was negatively affected due to unforeseeable reasons such as the lack of interaction with the students, the lack of feedback from the students, technical problems, containing the students via email when faced with technical problems, eye pain and inactivity due to the need to constantly look at the screen. However, some studio instructors, even they were few, looked at the positive aspects of the situation and made positive comments about their motivation. They said that reduction in paper waste, not wasting the time on transport, accessing lesson for anywhere in the world, communicating quickly with files, sharing links and images from internet simulation lately had positive effects on their motivation. Lastly, the studio instructors were asked to make a positive and negative comparison between the traditional education model and the online and hybrid education model. In general, the instructor stated that the concept of making together, learning together, and discussing together can be realized in the studio environment with students. However, they said that this is not possible with distance education and that the courses are carried out within the limits of online programs. In traditional education, studio lessons are continued with methods such as body language, tone of voice, mimics, simulations, hand drawing, and expression. But the education experience with the distance and hybrid education in studio lessons have caused a lack of communication, interaction, and meaning between the students and the instructors. One of the advantages of distance education is that the students who is not physically present at the school does not have expenses such as travel, communication, food and beverage, and printing out the layouts. In addition, it was said that the students physically gets less tired and save times because he does not spend time on the road. When the answers given to all questions were examined, it was seen that some studio instructors give completely opposite answer to the same question. One of the most obvious of this has taken its place in the last question, while one of the studio instructors responded to the comparison regarding the two educational models. I think these two are not even in a position to compare it with each other. Another instructor defined the distance education model as the beginning of the process. Conclusion, in general, only a few of the 15 instructors were satisfied with the process, but they also had difficulties at some points. At this point, taking into into account many factors containing architectural studio, education online and hybrid can be considered as a difficult way. Thank you.
Thank you, Merve Hoca. Well, going back to the previous presentation, there were interesting remarks on the reverse engineering, and I hope we can hear some further remarks on reverse engineering at the end of our session. The face-to-face interaction thing was also important within this Merve Hoca's interpretation also. Well, I was also curious on how we could deal with this issue of dimensionless space of this distance education, because I remember in the first days of the pandemic, many academics were very interested and let's say very happy about what was going on with the distance education. But today, I think many of us are on the opposite side of the discussion, I think. Now, our next speakers, Fulya, SELÇUK, and Ferhat HACIALİBEYOÐLU, will be dealing with another interesting subject, and their title is Living Laboratories in Architectural Research and Education.
Hi everyone, I am Hulya YAVAS from 9 Eylül University. I would like to present the paper titled as Living Laboratories in Architectural Research and Education. It focuses on the gap between academy, educational research, practice, and society in the field of architecture. The intersection of academy and practice is problematized with the question how the knowledge produced in the university is used in the field of practice. The intersection of academy and society is problematized with the question how the university engages with the society. So the main question comes forth: is there any alternative, or if we refer to the theme of conference, other model that would bridge this gap? This paper discusses living laboratory as a method that can be placed in the intersection of academy, practice, and society, and transform it into a responsive, inclusive, interactive, and productive interface. Within the scope of the study, literature review and case study methods are applied. The definitions and basic features of living labs are explained in the literature review. There are examples both in urban and rural contexts, and although they are predominantly technology-oriented, socially oriented living labs also have been developed. Since the problem definition indicates the intersection between academic, practice, and society, the university-led socially oriented urban living labs are examined. Living labs are defined as user-centered open innovation ecosystems based on systematic user co-creation approach, integrating research and innovation processes in real-life communities and settings. Urban living labs differentiate themselves from living labs by determining a territorial focus for social and local sustainability, mobility and energy, social interaction and integration, spatial development. As a result, the method was introduced into the field of planning and architecture. In line with its definitions and characteristics, urban living labs can be seen as innovation-driven and technologically centered instruments. On the other hand, this approach has been re-identified in social contexts to investigate social-spatial questions and conceptually translated to socially oriented urban living labs. Urban living labs can be led by governments, private sector, non-governmental organizations, urban developers, and universities. Among those, university-led living laboratories bring a pedagogical perspective to the discussion. Universities, with the awareness of their potential roles and social responsibilities, promote urban living labs to respond to global and local problems, expand their impact in society, act as a catalyst for urban change, and convert academic institutional knowledge to collective, transformative, usable, and social knowledge. In this study, examples of university-promoted urban living labs are investigated. To evaluate the cases, 4 criteria are defined. To be established in partnership with the university, being socially oriented, to define special problems in architectural urban scale, to propose special interventions. Among the list, 4 urban living labs met 4 criteria: University College London Urban Laboratory, Mapping Sansura Lab, Livenarch Sheffield, and Mersin City Lab. They are analyzed and criticized under the headings of field of study, disciplines, collaborators, theme, levels of university activities, and project and outcomes. As a result of literature review and case study, the characteristics of urban living labs are discussed in conclusion part. The changing way of producing and sharing knowledge in urban living labs imposes new roles and responsibilities on both human and institutional actors. Therefore, it's noteworthy that the variety of design and research methods has been used, and new roles and collaborations have been defined for actors in all cases. The project outcomes range from toolkits, installations, strategy plans, urban visions, one-to-one scale special interventions, prototypes to speculative proposals and manifesto. It demonstrates the diversity of architectural products. This diversity redefines what an architectural product is. 2 of the cases have, and 1 will have, physical space in the field of their studies. Having a physical space outside the campus could enable the universities and students to foster connections with the community and the real world. It also facilitates the trust-building process that needed in collaborative and multi-stakeholder activities. Moreover, such education and research activities, going beyond the boundaries of fictional studios, creates the possibility of transforming the problematic gap between architectural education, society, and practical field into co-design, co-creation, co-practice, and co-evaluation environments. Concepts such as participation, sustainability, interdisciplinarity, social architecture, architecture for society, or activism have been frequently mentioned in recent years, but mostly just in discursive level. However, these concepts are realized through actions in living labs. So, they go beyond the discursive level in practice, in action. In pedagogical perspective, urban living lab experience has many learning outcomes for students. First of all, students can experience all stages of the design process in a real-life context by setting up dialogues with relevant stakeholders. Thus, the students develop collaborative and participatory skills. To establish relationship with real actors in real time and real-life settings also gives an opportunity to provide a solution to today's real problems. In a similar way, live project method can be referred. Both methods as radical, critical, and live pedagogies aim to integrate field of education with practice and society. The implementation of living labs as socially oriented methods in urban studies make it possible to carry out current architectural studies in real-life contexts with action-oriented, participatory, experimental, multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary, and collaborative approach based on mutual interaction, learning, and creation. There's an increasing number of examples all around the world, but very few in Turkey. It's crucial to improve this model for architectural research and education in the context of Turkey. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. This was also very interesting and a whole new network of participatory studio practices, an emerging field of design, I think, as well as this also counts for education also, I think. And I was very curious how all those complexities were managed within the process with all those people. And I would also like to hear more about what was going on in Turkey and so. And our last paper is by Hulya YAVAS from Istanbul Aydın University. She'll be presenting deschooling the architectural education. I think another facet of the post-pandemic era.
Hello, dear panelists and listeners. I'm here today to talk to you about my work entitled Deschooling the Architectural Education. Before I start, I want to say that the study has been written within the scope of the elective course, Special Topics in Architectural Design, which focuses on architectural education, trajectories, models, and experiments tutored by Research Assistant PhD Şentürk and Research Assistant Bahar Gökçen Kumsar at Istanbul Technical University. First, the basis of this study depends on these questions about how architectural knowledge is conveyed and transformed without institutional boundaries, and how radical or alternative pedagogies can be injected into an institution. In my presentation, I aim to discuss the act of learning architecture within the permeable boundaries of the school and to consider the different ways of learning and teaching as the dissolution of the school. I will focus on different learning spaces and methods through alternative and radical pedagogies and offer new perspectives established by injecting them into the existing architectural education system instead of rejecting it. I will benefit from a series of experiments from the case studies of Radical Pedagogies project collected by Beatrice Colomino with her team and current examples of alternative pedagogical experiments. As part of my study, I will try to identify methods of deschooling architectural education. After all, by the help of these analyses, I will talk about a proposal that can be tried in Turkey. Secondly, as you can see here, the two examples from Radical Pedagogies projects are compared by specific criteria. The HARA laboratory was a research division, and Learning from Las Vegas was a research studio in a university. Both of their time of activity was short. Studio contents based on research beyond the city or country. Methodologies were in field observations, documentations. The difference from their time was being research-based, focusing beyond the classroom and exploring new representation techniques and transferring the new knowledge with a book as an outcome. As you can see here, the travel map of HARA laboratory and preparations of materials for field documentation of Learning from Las Vegas studio. In addition, as you can see here, the two examples from the current alternative pedagogical experiments are compared by same specific criteria. Learning from Kilburn was a tiny experimental university. University of Universities is an online international project. Both of their time of activity is short, but University of Universities is still active and not only as bachelor level, but also as master level. As studio content, Learning from Kilburn focuses on surveying the ordinary. University of Universities tries to discuss the specific topics such as the infinite place, the nature in buildings related to pandemic situation. Methodologies were based on discussions, but it's interesting that University of Universities has organized weekly online workshops, meetings with rotating leaderships, and their crits consist of the favorite teachers recommended by Erasmus students from their own school. The difference from today's examples is expanding the physical boundaries of a learning place, such as in a road, in a church, even in a home, and collectively and internationally. As you can see here, the portable set of learning from Kilburn can turn into a classroom in anywhere or anytime. In parallel with the University of Universities' fresh vision, Yürekli states that the design studio is a black hole where all kinds of information and energy is sucked in and unpredictable designs which have their own reality. The black hole can be a room, a city, or all of them. She emphasizes that the design studio is a place of communication, interaction, and sharing. Although where the architectural studio is a much debated question during the pandemic, it can be said that there are several creative ways to dissolve the virtual or physical aspects of the studio and spread the architectural knowledge. I would like to share two more examples from Turkey. Oba Ruhu is a alternative bioarchitectural practice that based on learning from nature and constructing collectively. One of their learning tools is traveling to learn from different cultures and try to integrate them into their design sense. And as sites for pedagogical experiments, Schools of Schools was an opportunity to question the design education through the process-oriented platforms to research, experiment, and learn in and beyond the city. The polyphonic participants of this biennale produced new knowledge and searched for alternatives to executed systems. Thirdly, according to the analysis of these examples, several principles stand out for deschooling the architectural education, such as learning from the doorstep, being nomadic, process-oriented, unformulated knowledge, collective syllabus design, and so on. And finally, I believe that the radicalization of an educational model or being an alternative to the existing model requires a site-specific and subjective starting point. Finding the deficiency within the existing system, creating a different niche here, and injecting the new model into this gap can be the general description of this process. As you can see, the mapping of the case studies of Colomina and her team's Radical Pedagogies project describes the experiments in various regions of the world with different durations and different approach by grouping them around specific keywords, such as city as laboratory, non-hierarchical, classless society. In addition, there is not a corresponding example in the map for every keyword, such as blank timetable. It can also be focused on these keywords for a new educational model proposal as an injection. Similar with the idea of blank timetable, academician Katie Davidson mentions the collective syllabus design in her book, The New Education. She states that the students are assigned to organize and design the other half of a half-designed syllabus as co-authors. It is thought that this kind of experiment can also be tried in existing schools in Turkey by tutors who are open to flexible approaches in their classes. By the help of these recordings about deficiencies and answers by not only students and teachers, but also non-academicians and locals, a virtual open archive, in other words, virtual cloud school, is proposed as record the deficiencies to inject different sources, ideas to existing system in the long term. And thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. So we have come to the end, I think. That was our last paper to be presented. Now we'll begin to take the questions if people have any. I also have mine. I tried to list them and also take notes while I was listening, and I thank you all of the participants for their very interesting papers. It's been a little bit weird to be within such a let's say a Magritte picture like webinar, because on the one hand it's obviously simultaneously happening, but on the other hand we have the secondary material, pre-cooked videos So having the simultaneity and the pre-cooked materials, so one might also confuse which one is which and which one is real. Where is the reality? The reality is evaporating, I think. Okay, I was just joking. Anyway, if we have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask them.
Actually, we have two in Q&A. Maybe we can answer these questions.
Levent hocam, I guess the first question was related with our presentation. Mm-hmm. If you accept, I can go on with the answering of that question.
Please proceed.
Also, I may, even if you agree, also refer to your question about reverse engineering as well, just to sum up both of the questions. First, to start with, actually, for all of us, I may speak on behalf of my colleagues as well, the feedbacks, the outcomes of these workshops were so grateful. Although we were some intentions, we were some estimations before the workshops to what to expect from as an outcome, when we made those evaluations, the feedbacks from the students were quite satisfactory by stating that they haven't been involved in such a hands-on practice before, where they can learn, where they can practice what they have learned, and where they can see immediate results of their executions immediately. So although some of the workshops were differing in the quality or in the amount of time spent or reserved for that workshops, we can say that as a total outcome, once more, we agree and we concluded that although in the architectural education, what we are trying to do to combine that supplementary courses within the core of that design studio education, we need more practical executions, more practical implications of those instances, like workshops, like again, hands-on practices that supports, that strengthens the idea of learning by doing, as we have also stated in the presentation. So as an instructor, I can say that I'm still also having those kinds of theory versus practice integrations in my courses as well. So we all agree on the efficiency of those workshops, and we hope after the pandemic we will be continuing on those, because we were about to fly to again for one more workshop on the day of that first closure. So it was very pity that we have to cancel it, but we hope when the things come normal, we will continue practicing on those workshops. I don't want to make it so longer, but coming back to your question of reverse engineering, we find it really important and valuable that our students have been educated to come to the final destination of the output, but they have never any chance to read it backwards towards the to check their brief accomplishments, consistencies of what have been required and what have been offered at the end. There is no time for any of us from the practice, from the architectural domain, to search back to that kind of feedback for any of us. So this reverse engineering, when we have given them the final output and try to work on them to decompose the stages, not the project, but the stages of the project as a reverse engineering, and try to clarify from their perspective what has been evolved, what has been occurred during those stages, in the moments of decision making, in the moments of superimpositions of different disciplines, in the moments of design criteria, declarations, and so on. So this was what we are why we are trying to imply reverse engineering. I don't know if my colleagues have other issues to add to this one, but that was a very general, I think, perspective.
Okay, thank you, Özge, Selen hocam. And the second question will be about the first presentation. I think is about the first presentation to Meltem hocam. What's the main reason for choosing animations for architecture design practice? Ayşenur Gürcan was asking. To Meltem hocam. Meltem Hoca, orada mısınız? And Alice Şahin is asking another question. What are the benefits of deschooling to education system from all your examples? For Hulya YAVAS.
Thank you for the question. Actually, the benefits, I can say that I think, and we all know, we learning formulated and planned knowledge in our schools, and I mean that the schooling architecture, and I'm trying to give examples to you to say that to going out our school buildings and to touch the real world and learning from there actually without hierarchy, and learning from each other, not only by our teachers. We can learn from the local people by this way, and in very horizontal relationship, I think we can learn by this way. And maybe if we go out the school building and try to learn from out there, we can make it worthy to research the everyday life and the ordinary things. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Hulya Hoca.
Excuse me, I cannot answer my question. I have a technical problems. I can answer now.
Okay, please.
Animation films have a particular place among the film kinds because animation films do not have a space in real life. Therefore, these are the films which require the more sensitive to place. That's the main reason why we we work on animation films. Thank
so
you.
If we are done, if we don't have any more questions, we can finish this session. If you have any last comments, we can also hear them.
Maybe I can answer your question, Levent Hocam, about the living laboratories. That I have just noted that how they deal with these complexities in participatory approaches during the living laboratories process. I can answer this like they exactly apply living laboratories to deal with these complexities, to deal with this diversity and the wicked problems in these social contexts. And that's why it has a multi-method approach. And due to the contacts and also process and team, also time and budget limitations, many different methods and tools were applied during these living laboratories experiences. And also that's why there's a variety of outcomes and outputs during the process, not just only for final product, also to communicate with all these stakeholders. And thank you for your comments and questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we have any further comments or? No further questions, I think. So we have come to the end of the third session within the Livenarch other architectures symposium. So I'm very thankful for all of our presenters, our speakers, and also to the university, Karadeniz Technical University, and all the team. So, good evening to all.